I think he did. I've been consistent with this. I'm not questioning that Nick Foles has some skills. Obviously, he's incredibly popular with the players. You could see the affection that they have for him when he was carted off the field last night. He's obviously a Super Bowl champion in a 2-year run in Philadelphia where he subbed for Carson Wentz, who went down to deliver the Super Bowl and then followed up when Carson Wentz got injured again the following year. And he won the last several games of the regular season and ultimately guided them to a playoff victory against Nagy's Chicago Bears. Before they lost to New Orleans in the divisional playoff game that year. We know what Nick Foles is capable of doing. But I make the contention that with the exception of that 1 year, Max, when he was playing under Chip Kelly, anytime Nick Foles has been your guy from start to finish, he hasn't been that effective. He's been best at his best is when he comes in late as the season has waned to sort of save the day to some degree. And I thought that should have been the same situation here. Chicago's offensive line is not very good. We all know that. We knew that from the start of the season. So when you consider the stationary target that is Nick Foles, I thought it was a huge mistake to bring him in at that particular moment in time. Again, I wasn't questioning whether or not he was better than Mitchell Trubisky, but Mitchell Trubisky definitely has better wheels. And because he has better wheels and he has the ability to move and scramble and create and move the chains in that regard, my attitude is you keep Mitchell Trubisky in for as long as you could possibly get away with it, particularly with you winning games. And then when you need Nick Foles to come in as the season wanes to save the day, he's capable of doing that. But the more you exposed him, an injury was inevitable. I said that over a month ago. And sure enough, last night it happened. So all we could do is sit here, hope and pray that he's okay and that the injury is not that significant to either his hip or his leg and that ultimately he'll be back. But it didn't look good last night. And I wish I could say I was surprised, but I wasn't.
I have to give you credit. You absolutely said exactly what you just said. You said, and at the time I agreed with you, ideally, but once you make the move, you got to stay with Foles. Here's the problem. The offensive line is awful. It was not good to begin the season, and then they lost 4 starters, and then they lost backups. So they can't even start the backup to a starter who's not that good. The offensive line is among the worst you'll see. They cannot protect the passer. They cannot block for the running backs. So you can't get anything done. And Nick Foles is not the kind of guy who's going to overcome that. Nick Foles is the kind of guy, if you put him behind a good line and he has some weapons in the defense, he needs stuff. But he will not only not stop you from winning in that circumstance, he'll actually help you win. He'll actually make clutch plays. He'll be big on third down when you need him most. He'll be excellent in the playoffs. That's not this Bears team. And I can't say that it's even the coach. I can't even blame this on Nagy. I have to blame this on Ryan Pace and the Bears organization, the GM and the whole organization. Guys, do you understand?
Okay.
The reason Nick Foles, who could be had in the middle of a season, had for a little trade package, and you can bring him in as a backup, the reason he's even there is because they whiffed so bad on Trubisky. Think about this, Stephen A. The Bears won in 1985, also with not like the greatest quarterback ever. It was really the defense, right? But they win in 1985, maybe the greatest football team ever, certainly on a short list, right? The 85 Bears. It's like the 27 Yankees. We remember these kind of labeled teams because this is the standard. Since then, who's been their quarterback? And again, not an MVP caliber guy back then. Who's been their best quarterback since 1985? Maybe Jay Cutler? Maybe Cutler's their best? Is it Kyle Orton? Is it Rex Grossman? Think about this. Chicago, a town that is so crazy about football, Stephen A. Do you remember that old SNL skit, The Bears, and all that stuff? That was happening in the middle of the Bulls dynasty. The Chicago had Michael Jordan, the greatest and most famous athlete on the history of the planet Earth. They were winning championships every single year. And if you turned on SNL, you heard the Bears. That's how football obsessed Chicago is. And the best this franchise can do in 35 years is Jay Cutler or Kyle Orton or Rex Grossman. They traded up. They put a package together to grab Trubisky, right? Well, it's unfair to Trubisky. He's always being compared to these better quarterbacks taken after him. It's not just him. It's every draft since 1985. They haven't had a quarterback in this town in 35 years. This ain't Foles, and it ain't Coach either. This is what they're working with. They whiffed on Trubisky.
Well,
he was a bust, just like every quarterback's been a bust for this team in 35 years.
Your points are incredibly valid, Max, because you're pointing to the town and the culture. And the fact of the matter is that Mitchell Trubisky went to a Chicago Bulls game and got unceremoniously booed because they recognized, even before he had ever played the game, that he was no Deshaun Watson, that he was no Patrick Mahomes, and that was not the guy that they wanted him. So from a psychological perspective, from what I've been told, that's always had an effect on him, and he was hell-bent on proving it. And so he thought and overthought, and as a result, it's compromised his productivity. We get that. But here's the flip side. He was 3-0 this year. You bring in Nick Foles, you're 2-5. There's something to be said about that. I get you with the management, because the bottom line is you made the decision to move up. It was your job to know better than doing that, to make sure that you had two other quarterbacks that end up being elite. Okay, one obviously more than the other in Holmes compared to Deshaun Watson, but nevertheless, they were there and they obviously had incredible upside. Plus, when you consider the fact that a Deshaun Watson had won a national championship and been in back-to-back national championship games, in 2 games against Alabama, the man threw for over 800 yards, and you pass him up to bring some quarterback that had never been on that stage. That was a mistake on the part of Pace, no doubt about it. But Nagy had Trubisky. He knows what he has with an offensive line. Why are you putting a stationary target behind that offensive line that early in the season when you undefeated at 3-0? Why would you do that? And that's where I think Nagy obviously deserves significant blame.
I mean, listen, not only was that pre some of the injuries to an already bad offensive line, and you could argue, well, you'd rather have a more mobile guy. By the way, Trubisky